Hey guys, considering our country is probably going to slide into either a civil war or World War III, whatever happens first, I thought it'd be a great time to talk about my favorite war movies. So, personally, I'm pretty anti-war. As a person, I'm much more of a pacifist. So I think that influences my list in a way because a lot of these movies don't have the best view of war. War, what is it good for? Of course, we all know what it's good for. It's good for, those insider trading people to make money off of weapons. Anyway, this is about the movies. I have compiled a list of, I think, 11 different movies. I wanted to make a top 10 list, but I thought, like, none of these weren't removing from the list. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll just make a top 11 list because this is America. It's a free country. I can make a top 11 list. Anyway, let's start off with Saving Private Ryan, mainly because of that introduction scene um, of the storming of Normandy. It's very brutal. It doesn't make it like romanticize it. It shows like, yep, this is a very brutal movie. And I think the movie itself is a stark departure from a lot of the Steven Spielberg movies before. Steven Spielberg is kind of known for his action adventure family style movies. This, not it at all. Very dark, very depressing. Great acting though by Tom Hanks and the rest of the cast. Matt Damon's really good in this. I like how it kind of goes on like the survival's guilt some soldiers have with old Private Ryan asking his wife if it was worth it. It was such a sweet scene, and it kind of like, I don't know, it makes me emotional every time. Speaking of emotional, Life is Beautiful. So this is an Italian movie, so I'm not sure how many of you have seen this one. It's really good. It's about this Jewish father and his son who have to go to a concentration camp during World War II, and he tries to make the best of it for his son by acting like they're on a vacation, when really he knows that they're probably gonna die soon. It's very like it's kind of a dark comedy, but also it's very sad because you could see like how the dad just wants his kid to be happy, and he's doing it like the only way he knows how. Very like it's a very emotionally draining movie because like the stuff he does is kind of funny, but also like you have this layer of sadness as an adult watching the movie. So it's a really mature movie, I'd say. That ending is just so sad, but like beautiful and hopeful at the same time. I don't know, it always gets me. Not a movie I'd want to watch again. It's been like a decade since I've seen it, and I'm not exactly trying to watch this movie again because it's just so emotionally draining. Moving on to Casablanca, which is a movie from the 1940s. What hasn't been said about this movie? Everybody loves this movie. It's a classic. It shows how two levels were kind of drifted apart because of the French invasion by the Nazis, and now they reunite in this bar in Casablanca, and you know, it's very the acting in this movie between Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, you feel like these people have a history just by the looks they give each other alone. And he has to decide whether to give it to her and her husband, or these passes to get out of Casablanca to her and her husband, or use it for himself. And he feels really betrayed by her because of the way the relationship ended, how she didn't go with him to escape. And I don't know, it's such a great movie. The ending is probably what it's most famous for. It has like a really bittersweet ending. Um, Normally I'm not a huge romance fan, but this is just so like the characters feel so realistic and grounded. It's something you don't really see that often. Moving on to Inglourious Basterds, not the most grounded movie, not the most historically accurate movie, but it is very fun to watch, like most of Tarantino's films. It's very like it feels like a comic book made into a movie. The villain of this, Hans, is so creepy and unsettling because he's like a total psychopath. Brad Pitt and his team are so like likable, and I really like the woman who plays the movie theater lady. She's really cool. It's a really good movie, though. Not exactly something you'd want to watch if it's like a documentary because they kind of take history very lightly. But I think it's cool because it shows like a revenge story that everybody wish would have happened, instead of Hitler taking the easy way out. Moving on to Apocalypse Now, which is a very depressing movie. I saw the extended edition, which I don't think those scenes at the French little plantation thing, I don't think those needed to be there, so I know why those were cut out for the original, but the rest of the movie itself is really good. I love the acting between Martin Sheen and the guy from Godfather, I forgot his name, Robert Duvall, he's really good. Um, it's a very dark movie because you're in Vietnam. It was filmed during Vietnam in an active war zone, so you can have this like authenticity to it, and it's just one horror after the other. And Marlon Brando, despite not being in the movie for the first 2 hours, completely steals the scene in his few like few minutes of appearing in the movie. He completely steals it, and it's insane because like you wouldn't really expect that. He has this such like he has this real like apathetic nihilistic view of the world shaped by the war, and it kind of shows why he acts the way he is. And you see the beginnings of that feeling with Martin Sheen's character because he's so like traumatized by the war, he only feels comfortable when he's in a war zone, which is why he was so upset at the beginning of the movie. It's I feel like that one would take like another rewatch to kind of understand the themes of it, but I really enjoyed it. Not the lightest movie, like I said, like most of the things on this list. Moving on to Come and See, which is a Soviet movie from the 80s. Not really familiar with that many Russian movies, but this one has a very distinctive tone to it. Very distinctive, like the way the camera looks is very unlike anything else I've seen. Um, it's basically this teenager gets whisked away to war and is traumatized for like 3 hours straight. Um, not those Nothing good happens in this movie. It's very nihilistic, very like look how traumatizing the war is. Um, yeah, that was kind of hard to sit through. Probably won't watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it because it reaffirms my opinion that yeah, war kind of sucks. Moving on to Paths of Glory. So this is a movie from the 50s, might be the 60s, but I'm pretty sure it's the 50s, starring Kurt Russell. Oh, not Kurt Russell, Kirk Douglas. Um, so it has Kirk Douglas in it, and it's directed by Stanley Kubrick, and I think it's one of his most underrated movies because nobody really talks about this when talking about the Stanley Kubrick movies. This one is basically like he's in World War One. In the first half of the movie, he's in the trenches, and it's this very chaotic scene. And in the second half of the movie, Kirk Douglas is on trial because he's like kind of caught on to this corruption going on, and they're trying to pin it on him. And it kind of shows like the corruption and bureaucracy that happens in war on like no matter what side you're on. There's people in it to make a profit. There's people in it for like not for any cause. It's just to make money, or just like achieve ulterior motives. And the trial scenes are so good. Kirk Russell's performance is really good. The dialogue is really good. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I really want to revisit it someday. Yeah, like I said, probably Stanley Kubrick's most underrated movie because nobody I know talks about this one. Moving on to 1917, this is a more recent one. So this one makes it unique because it's filmed as if like most of the movie is one continuous take or two continuous takes, even if like it clearly isn't sometimes. But the idea is so good. The acting is great between Tom and Baratheon and George McKay. It's very like it has that thing I like about role movies where it doesn't kind of glamorize the role. It kind of more so like shows the horrors of it. So they're in the trenches, and then you have to get from trench A to trench B to tell somebody else about the brother dying and to warn them about the oncoming attack. And I think seeing it through the eyes of them in this like very long take kind of makes you more emotionally invested in it. You feel connected, like you're actually there. So really good movie. Soundtrack's really good too. I think the soundtrack should have won the Oscar instead of the Joker because I think the soundtrack for this one is a little bit more memorable. On the Pan's Labyrinth, so I don't know if this counts as a role or not because it's more like a fantasy movie. So this one takes place during the Spanish Revolution, and before watching this movie, I didn't even know there was a Spanish Revolution, which shows how little they teach us about world history in in America. But apparently, there's a Spanish Revolution, and this little girl is sent off because her mom has to marry this asshole, and she kind of deals with her trauma by coming up with these like imaginary things. Though it's kind of hard to tell in the movie what stuff is imaginary and what stuff isn't imaginary. It's a very like surrealist movie. Sometimes it's terrifying, like the guy with the eyes on his hand. That is creepy as fuck. That is so creepy. Um, but I think I kind of this as a horror movie because it shows how brutal some people could be. Like when the wrong people have power, bad things happen. Whole stepdad in the movie is probably one of the most ruthless, like narcissistic characters I've ever met and well ever seen. You know, he obviously he doesn't exist. I haven't met him, but a really memorable villain. He is so creepy just because he lacks like no compassion or anything, and you know why? Because he has like daddy issues and stuff. But yeah, very dark movie based on what happened at the end. I don't want to spoil it. Um, but it's also kind of beautiful at the same time. The supporting cast is really good too. I like that woman who's like a spy. She's really good. I need to rewatch this one because it has been a few years since I've seen it. But it is a movie I would see it again. It's by Guillermo del Toro, who, well, not the nicest guy in real life, definitely makes some great movies. Moving on to Gone with the Wind. Um, I think I've already talked about this movie enough on the channel, but it kind of like it's like a kind of a Shakespearean epic set in Civil War America, kind of like a fall from grace for this family in this town. So they start off as obnoxious, uppity slave owners, very unlikable lady, Scarlett O'Hara, and then you see her kind of fall from grace throughout the movie, and she kind of humbles herself, and that's a really interesting story following the movie from like the perspective of people on the wrong side of history. Obviously, you don't really like Scarlett O'Hara or the other characters because they're slave owners, but you see these like really bad stuff happen to them, so you kind of start to feel sympathy for them, and I don't know, it makes me feel different things because on one hand you're like Scarlett, you're such an asshole, but on the other hand you're like, well, Scarlett, you're kind of a badass, and Vivian Leigh has that like really interesting portrayal of that, how this character could be so selfish and vindictive and petty, but you also low key root for her at the same time. It's it's really unique. It kind of reminds me of like Cersei Lannister a little bit from Game of Thrones. Moving on to the Deer Hunter, this takes place in Vietnam, I think. So Robert De Niro and Christopher Walken are sent to Vietnam, and they basically get traumatized. And Christopher Walken becomes like insane, and he starts playing Russian roulette all the time. And Meryl Streep's like, you gotta get him out of there, but it's kind of too late because he's already insane. Very depressing movie. Probably won't want to watch this again, but I did really like Robert De Niro's performance. It's probably one of Robert De Niro's best movies, and that's saying a lot because I think he's a really good actor. And Christopher Walken, very good movie for him too. He's not like, comedic Christopher Walken. Hey, I'm Christopher Walken. He's not that. He's very serious, and I think that like shows that yeah, he is actually a really good actor. He doesn't play the same character and everything, which I kind of think I needed to see. And last on this list is All Quiet on the Western Front. I have not seen the new versions of it. I'm talking about the one from 1930. So this movie is like almost 100 years old at this point, but I think it still holds up. Very nihilistic, very brutal. It shows that like how propaganda makes people like, yeah, war is awesome. Look at these heroes. War is amazing. Gotta solve the country. When by the end of the movie, you're like, wow, war kind of sucks. You know, it's all a big nothing. And I really like how they portray that, especially that scene where the guy comes back and he's trying to tell people like, hey, going to war isn't all it's cranked up to be. You know, it's pretty traumatizing. Everybody's like, boo, you suck, man. How could you be anti-war? Dude. And it's very depressing, very sad movie. There's basically no happy moments in this movie. It's just one nasty thing after another. I I saw the DVD version of it, and I feel like the movie could use a remaster because being 90 years old, um, it's kind of like hard to follow at some points because the film was really grainy and the audio's now remastered. So maybe I just got a bad copy of it. Who knows? But still, I think that movie paved the way for all these other war movies because it shows the very nihilistic, like the way it turns people nihilistic and apathetic. And I don't know. Basically, Rule sucks. Rule's awful. And if you don't think Rule's awful, watch the movies I just mentioned, and you'd probably agree with me that Rule sounds like a really bad idea, and hopefully we do not enter one in the near future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, peace.